Deep in the heart of the Brazilian rainforest, 800 miles from the nearest city, there is a ghost. But it isn't a kind of ghost you'd expect. It isn't a lost temple or an ancient ruin. It's a 1920s American suburb. If you push through the vines and heavy, humid air, you'd find fire hydrants buried in the mud. You'd find skeletons of clapboard houses with wraparound porches. You'll find a massive industrial powerhouse that looks like it was plucked out of Detroit and dropped in a prehistoric green hell. This is Fordlandia. It was the dream of Henry Ford, the man who put the world on wheels. In 1928, Ford didn't just want to buy rubber for his tires. He wanted to own the earth that grew it. He wanted to export the American way of life to a place that had its own rules about how life should work. At that time, 1920s, the British and Dutch held the monopoly on rubber. Ford hated being told what to pay. Henry Ford was a man who hated middlemen. He didn't just want a supply chain, he wanted a total control. He bought a piece of Brazil the size of a small American state. He didn't hire a botanist or a tropical architect. He hired his own engineer team from Michigan. He believed that if you could build a car on an assembly line, you could practically build a forest the same way. He invested the equivalent of $250 million to build a Midwestern utopia in the jungle. He built a golf course, a movie theater, showing Greta Garbo films, and organized square dances for the local workers. He banned alcohol, he banned tobacco, and he demanded that the Amazon rainforest follows a 9-to-5 factory whistle. And of course, Ford, being the man that he was, he also had a strict moral code for the workers to follow. For instance, he forced Brazilian workers to eat American food, oatmeal and brown rice, in 100 degrees heat, and attend poetry readings. The conflict wasn't just about labor, it was about the soul. Ford tried to turn the Amazonian rivermen into a Michigan factory hands. He forced them to work under the blistering noon sun, the time when every animal and local human knows to sleep. He treated the rainforest like a factory floor, forgetting that in the jungle the machines don't run on electricity, they run on decay. But the jungle wasn't interested in Henry Ford's schedule. The jungle was waiting. And as the white picketed fences began to rot, Ford would learn that you can build a city, but you cannot conquer it. A void that has been growing for 10 million years. Imagine walking through a neighborhood that looks like it belongs in Ohio. Paved roads, sidewalks, street lights. But the pests in your backyard are caimans and anacondas. The sound of a factory whistle was constantly drowned by the screams of a howler monkeys. It was a visual glitch in the history of the 20th century. Ford built the most advanced hospital in South America there, including X-ray machines and labs, all for free. The hospital was a jewel in the mud. It was better than most hospitals in the US at the time. Today, it's a shell. You can still see the high-end tiles and the surgical theaters, but now they are filled with bats and wasps. Now, Henry Ford's greatest invention wasn't the car, it was the system. He believed that anything, even nature, could be optimized if you just organized it correctly. In the wild, rubber trees, the Hevea brasiliensis, are loners. They grow hundreds of feet apart, separated by dozens of other species. This is the jungle's immune system. If a pest finds one tree, it can't find the next. But the Ford's engineers didn't want a messy jungle. No, they wanted a factory. They cleared 1 million acre and planted trees shoulder to shoulder. Millions of them, in a perfect grid. Now, to Ford, this was efficiency. To the jungle's parasites, this is all-you-can-eat buffet. Ford's engineers didn't realize that jungle soil is surprisingly nutrient-poor because the trees recycle everything so fast. When they cleared the land, the soil just died. Ford thought the jungle was fertile because it was, well, green. He didn't realize the green was a thin skin. By clearing the trees, he essentially skinned the land. The rains came and washed the topsoil into the river, leaving behind a hard red clay that could grow nothing. He was trying to plant a fortune in a graveyard. Now in that mix throw in a bit of Microcyclus ulae, the South American leaf blight. In a natural forest, this fungus is a minor nuisance, but in a Ford's orderly rows, it was a wildfire. It jumped from leaf to leaf, from tree to tree, and with terrifying speed. Because Ford had refused to hire a single professional botanist, believing his Michigan engineers knew better. There was no one to tell him that he was building a biological time bomb. Now, while the trees were dying, the humans were breaking. Ford didn't just want the rubber, he wanted the Model T man. He mandated a lifestyle that was physically impossible in the Amazon. He banned tobacco and alcohol in a region where beer was safer to drink than the river water. He forced the local workers to wear heavy American-style uniforms and name tags. He forced the local workers to attend square dances and sing English folk songs on weekends. Now, imagine a scene, a humid Saturday night in the Amazon, 100% humidity, and a group of exhausted Brazilian rubber trappers are being forced to do a do-si-do while a gramophone plays The Old Grey Mare. It was a surreal performance of a world that existed only in Henry Ford's nostalgia. But the breaking point wasn't the work, it was the food. Ford's sociological department decided that workers should eat like Detroit laborers. They served brown rice, whole wheat bread and oatmeal. To the Brazilians who were used to fresh fish, beans in farofa, this wasn't just unappetizing, it was an insult to their culture. In December 1930, the Void finally pushed back. In a scene known as the breaking of the pans, the workers snapped. They smashed the time clocks, cut the telephone wires, and chased the American manager into the jungle. They threw the oatmeal into the river, and for a few days the jungle didn't belong to Ford. It belonged to the chaos he had tried to organize. By 1934, the Fordlandia was a ghost town of dying trees, but Henry Ford didn't quit. He doubled down. He bought another tract of land 80 miles downstream at a place called Belterra. He thought if he just moved to a flatter land with better drainage, the assembly line of rubber would finally work. He built another town, more white picketed fences, more square dances, more Michigan-style hospitals. He even tried to top graft the trees, essentially performing surgery on millions of saplings to give them the roots of one species and the leaves of another. It was a frantic, expensive battle against microscopic fungus. For 10 more years, Ford's engineers fought the jungle. They used chemical sprays, they imported new seeds from Southeast Asia, they worked through malaria outbreaks and searing heat. But while they were fighting the fungus, the world outside was changing. During World War II, the secret to winning wasn't in the trees, it was in the lab. American scientists perfected synthetic rubber. Suddenly the million-acre dream in the Amazon wasn't just a biological disaster, it was economically irrelevant. In 1945, Henry Ford's grandson, Henry Ford II, took over the company. He looked at the books and saw a black hole that he had swallowed over $20 million, nearly $300 million in today's money. His order was simple: sell it. The Brazilian government bought the entire empire, the towns, the hospitals, the power plants, and the millions of dying trees for a measly $250,000. It was pennies on a dollar for the most expensive void ever created. But here is the most surreal part of the story. Henry Ford, the man who micromanaged the oatmeal, the dances, and the floorboards of every house, never once set foot in Fordlandia. He built a world he never visited. He spent millions to recreate his childhood home in a place he was too afraid or perhaps too busy to ever see. Today people still live in the ruins. They use the old American houses, they walk the paved Michigan streets. But the jungle is the one truly in charge now. It serves as a reminder that no matter how much concrete you pour or how many whistles you blow, the Earth has a way of returning to the original frequency. Now, Fordlandia isn't a dead city, it's a parasite city. Local Brazilians moved into the American bungalows, they burned the luxury hospital into a squat. It's a bizarre mix of 1920s Americana and 2020s Amazonian survival. You'll see a satellite dish mounted on a rotting Michigan porch. It's a visual definition of a glitch in history. Ford's failure left a scar that hasn't healed. The soil he cleared is still poor. The monoculture experiment proved to the world that you cannot force the Amazon to behave like a farm. Every modern effort to save the rainforests is in some way a response to the mistakes made at Fordlandia.